Hello, and welcome to this episode of the Marketing Guides for Small Businesses podcast. My name is Paul Bartho with Changescape Web, and today we're going to continue our series about online funnels and the role the nurture funnel plays in the success of your marketing. As always, today I'm joined by Jen Kelly from New Initiatives Marketing in Toronto, Ontario, Ken from Changescape Web in St. Charles, Missouri, Dan from Caliber Brand Strategy in Chicago, and Ian Cannell from Outsourced Marketing in Bradford, Ontario. So, Ken,
You're at the capital of Canada, right?
That's right.
that's right.
Don't let it out.
Well, Ken, let's start at the beginning, because I think a lot of times we talk about the funnel and the different stages of the funnel, and you have the top of the funnel that no one wants to acknowledge exists. You don't want to spend any time or money there, but it's important because you can't have prospects to nurture if no one is aware of your business. So can you give us like a high level overview of this awareness part of the funnel and what it is and what a business owner can expect during that stage of marketing?
Yeah, absolutely. So, first of all, it absolutely completely depends on the products or services that you sell. If you're, and I think a great tool to think through this is the elements of value pyramid that was created by Bain and Company and published in the Harvard Business Review 2016, 2017. But basically think of it as like a higher, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, but for the products and services that you sell. And so if you're a restaurant or, maybe even more of a lifestyle kind of business, you don't have a long sales cycle, maybe. You don't really need much of an awareness campaign. You can actually probably go right to an offer, especially if you're a restaurant. If you're running an ad driving people to an offer, right before lunchtime, that you're probably going to have really good success with that. You don't need to build a long-term nurture strategy. So it absolutely depends on what you're going to sell. If you sell something that's aspirational, something that's life-changing, or something that's a status symbol, like if you're going to sell a luxury car, or you're going to ask somebody to spend, $25,000 on a marketing program with you, for example, then you need to be prepared to build the awareness, because that's where the know, like, and trust has to happen. And so you're going to have to think about, once you got to get them into the funnel for, adding value to them initially, helping them solve a problem. And then the nurture is typically going to be educational, so it's going to be providing additional content to help them, kind of move through that know, like, and trust stage, and then you may even have to kick them into a secondary funnel where maybe you give them an offer to try something. So maybe, some small paid but high value consultation that you might have to offer, or something to that effect. So, I think it's really important to and you got to be honest with yourself, and what is the nature of your business? What do you sell, and who do you sell it to? And what is it, put yourself in their situation. What is it that's likely for them to take in terms of the steps based on that? And so, when you're talking about Facebook ads can be a great example of kind of that top of the funnel strategy, where really Facebook advertising, it should really be broken out into the three phases that Facebook calls out, the awareness, consideration, and conversion. And Facebook, defines, awareness ads really are, it's audience building. It's getting people, to know about your business, to learn about your business, to trust your business. And so, you might spend ads on Facebook literally to drive people to your website to read a blog post without a call to action, just so that they start to become aware of your business. Maybe you do have a call to action for them to get a content upgrade, download an ebook, or, watch a webinar or something like that. But, it's going to be different for every business, and it's really, really, really important to map it out. Otherwise, you're probably going to spend a lot of money and be frustrated with the results.
Yeah, those are some really good points, especially about the longer the sales cycle or the more expensive your product or service, the more important that top of the funnel, the nurture part is.
Yeah, the elements of value pyramid is really a great guide. I mean, I would encourage everybody to go look that up and buy a copy of the article on the Harvard Business Review site, because it's just super valuable. I keep a copy of it beside me on my desk all the time, because
Wow.
we work with a lot of different types of businesses, and it's a great reference point, and it forces me to think about things differently, and really in the perspective of how the perceived value of that product is going to be, or service is going to be, for their ideal customers.
So moving on a little bit, Dan, once we get past this awareness part, again, depending on your business, a lot of people may not be ready to buy yet. So is this where we really get to the nurturing part, and what's the strategy during this stage of the funnel?
Yeah, that's a great question, Paul. I think one of the things that you got to look at is when we say nurture, it doesn't. I think the default tends to be, let's just dump them all the other guys into an e-newsletter, and we'll blast out at them, and that'll be that. And I think most people do that, which leads me to say, well, there's an opportunity to do a lot more. And let's assume for the moment that these people who are in awareness mode of you, they don't want to just hear about you all the time. I sure don't. I mean, I don't want to hear from someone on LinkedIn 5 times in a row. Do you? And they haven't asked any questions about me? I think that's probably a good opportunity for me to remove you. And so think about that when you're nurturing someone. The best way to blow it really fast with someone in the awareness stage is to start pitching them. There's a guy here in town, I don't care. He was like, well, you should just start pitching anyway. Don't wait. Don't try to get to know them. I think that's like the worst advice in the world. Like, why on earth would you try to pitch someone when you've just connected to them, or they're just becoming aware of you? I think instead you got to say, let me ask some deeper questions about what's going on with you. If this is somebody that you truly want to nurture, you think that there's an opportunity, then now is not necessarily the time to start pitching away, at least in a very overt way, as much as give them, as Ken alluded to, something of value, something of what is it about their business. You got to study them. There are tools that allow you to not only follow the person, but also follow their company. The opportunity in nurturing then would become, how can I, instead of trying to nurture 5,000 people, who are the 20 to 40 people maybe that I should be nurturing instead, or the 20 to 40, say, companies? And then I can have some messaging that is around what is going on in their world, rather than saying, hey, here's another thing about me again. I haven't asked you anything about you. I haven't gone to your website. I haven't seen anything about your LinkedIn. I haven't seen any updates about you. But by the way, here's more about us. I think that's a horrible approach. I will not mince words. I don't think that's a good approach for nurturing. And I think the opportunity, even better yet, the opportunity is that you can stand out by being that personal. And so nurturing is great. Do it the right way, though.
But again, Dan, I mean, it really does depend, because what you described is really for more of a relationship and a longer term and maybe a higher value sale. You can accelerate, you can press your foot on the gas really hard if it's a lifestyle related business, where if you can find that opportunity where somebody, if somebody's going to be in a wedding, maybe they need to lose some weight to look good for the wedding pictures, or get their teeth whitened as a dentist. And so you can really press the gas hard, and you don't need a long sales cycle. You just need a great offer to convert them to become a customer. And then you've got to nurture them to grow them into a long-term customer. So it's really important understanding the dynamics of different businesses.
Yeah. No, I don't disagree with that, Ken. I think it's when you are in that situation, though, you're getting a sense of, oh, well, they're interested in an offer. So they've made that move. They have said, at least I have an interest in what you have to say as far as your offer or another piece of content or something like that. And I totally agree with you. when they have made that move and that clue that they want to hear more in that way, and they're especially with an offer, all bets are off. I think then I agree with you.
Yeah.
You can go full throttle.
Yeah.
It's when what we see out there is none of that's being done.
Right.
Like, none of those. I haven't responded to an offer. I haven't indicated anything about you other than maybe connecting with you, liking your Facebook page, and that's about it. So, but I wholeheartedly agree. If they've made that move, you can move it up by sure for sure.
And that's a great point, Dan. Sometimes we forget what the key word in this is, and it's nurture. But the one that gets lost in there is relationship. You're actually not nurturing a robot. You're nurturing a person. You're trying to create a relationship with them, connect with them, and understand them more and more and more, and help them understand you more and more and more at each stage. Right? It's this this dance. It's a beautiful relationship dance, everyone.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I was saying this probably in the last week or two. I said, everybody's bagging on marketing automation, and like marketing automation is evil. And I said, marketing automation isn't the problem. It's that you have lousy messages in your marketing automation that are totally impersonal. And there are ways to do this in a way that is focused and can be personal. You can scale this if you're doing this the right way and focused on your ideal client.
So, Jen, when we talk about lead nurturing, and you could also think of it, I guess, as customer engagement, we can tend to get into this linear thought pattern. So is this something that, okay, we did this part of the funnel and now we can move on and we're done with that? Or is this something that happens throughout the entire marketing process?
I would suggest it needs to be done throughout the entire marketing process. And the thing is, okay, so for the small business owners listening, I always want to bring it back to real life because we can get kind of complicated with all our marketing speak here. But you know what it's like in real life when someone wants something for you and they're all friendly to you until they get it and then they ignore you. It's kind of the same in your lead nurturing, right? You can't be all friendly and then get the sale and then, not do a good job fulfilling the order or being a good client manager in the case of services. So lead nurturing, it has to happen at every stage. It's going to change a little bit. Like as we go through, first of all, they get to know you, like you, trust you. There's a little bit of a difference going on there with the different types of content and the messaging, right? You don't have to introduce yourself anymore when they're at the try stage, trying out a free offer or a low cost offer from you. But I would suggest that you really treat it like a relationship, like Ian said, and pay attention at each stage along the way, even while they become a customer to after they're finished becoming a customer, whether it's a restaurant like Ken said, you want them to come back next Tuesday, right? If it's a longer term product or service that they're buying from you, you want them happy that whole year through. And then at the end of it, you want the renewal, you do want the referral. So think of lead nurturing as like really paying attention to this potential customer, or once they become a customer, really paying attention to your customer.
And I think you made a good point in there when you talked about the content, where the content has to match the stage that you're in with that particular customer. That could be a whole nother podcast. But Ian, so Ken touched on this a little bit. Is this a good time to have an introductory offer? Is it too soon, or should you? I think Ken kind of touched. Maybe you can do it a little earlier. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, the way we would normally get people into the funnel is through some sort of offer. It's a value exchange always, right? It might be totally free with no strings attached, just to get them to know you. So as an example, you might be presenting an ad for a free checklist on how to choose the best web developer or something like that. And then that checklist, from that, all we're asking for is their name and their email address. And so the relationship is starting. And then in the next email we send them to, we're going to offer them something else. And I would suggest that tries are actually things that should be presented throughout your funnel, but always with a quick action buy. So Ken talked about in the restaurant industry, people are probably ready to buy when they're looking for you because they're hungry. And so that's a great example. But even in longer relationship building, longer sales cycle type scenarios, you should always have a buy because you want to give people the ability to fast track themselves if they're ready to buy. It's kind of a one way we like to talk about it in the marketing world is micro agreements. You're getting people to move themselves and to take, if we think about kind of that that dance analogy, I'm not a good dancer, so I'm no expert here, but I've observed dancers, right? And it's kind of like, two people starting far apart, and each part of that nurture is about them taking a step closer and being able to engage more and in bigger and better ways. And then just to kind of bridge off of something that Jen said, just like in a relationship, if you're looking for a spouse and you're dating and you're building that relationship over time, you don't usually put a fast track button there, because if people aren't ready to get married usually right away, but some are. but then it's after that marriage happens, you never stop nurturing the relationship, right? If you stop nurturing the relationship, it will die. And so it's similar to that in your business relationship, that you have to continue to nurture people. And post-sale, you can still use tries. You might have a new service that you want to offer these people, these clients of yours that already trust you, and maybe you'll offer them a try in order to test out that new product or service.
That's always the try. I think, Ian, is what's so huge in terms of, it doesn't have to, that can be such a defining moment. I mean, we know this as consultants, is that some of the tries that we've all used, it's not like we need a giant getting to know you period before, like, it's pretty much like, okay, we've had a discovery meeting. I've said pretty much everything I can say about me. I don't need to have another meeting. Do you want to do a try and see what it's like to work together with a strategy, let's say, just a baby step? And you don't need another meeting to, if all the decision makers are in the room, you don't need another meeting for that. Like, are we going to dance, or are you a nurture? So I think the sooner you can figure that out via a good try, will tell you everything. But the one thing I think you always want to avoid is a getting to know you stage where you just never know where they land. Like,
right.
Is this a person who's a prospect, or are they just going to be a continuous nurture?
And that's a great point, Dan. I know from our perspective, because we all know each other on this podcast, is that our goal when we do our tries, especially if it is a discovery call, so we might offer a checklist or an ebook or something, or even a physical book that will mail people to get them to trust us and to see us as experts in the field. But the discovery call is usually a very large try, because it's that value exchange again. They've now given up a certain portion of their time, which is their most important treasure they have, right? And they're giving it up to spend a little bit of time with us. And our role as consultants is to listen, for sure, but also to offer enormous value on those calls, because again, we're exchanging value so that they can see, wow, like, I love working with these people. They will deliver exactly what I need, because they've already delivered enormous amounts of value in this free call.
All right, excellent. So, Ken, when we talk about this whole lead nurturing process, so we'll go into this a little deeper in a little bit, but what are some of the components that go into this process of lead nurturing?
Well, I think you have to think about, the whole concept of value in advance, and it's got to be value throughout the entire process, and so there are multiple ways to deliver value, and it's channels, but it's also the content that you provide through that, and it could be something that is designed to get somebody to take that next step, or it could just be to give them some more information to help them solve a problem. and just building that trust. Think about the problems that you solve, and then map out a strategy. I mean, one of the things that I like to do for something that takes a little bit of a longer sales cycle is just highlight like a case study or success story with something we've had, provide a customer testimonial, answer those core objectives or objections, I should say, that maybe your ideal customer or client might have, and just provide that as part of the nurture sequence. Always have a call to action in there, but don't make it the main thing. Make it something that it's like, oh, here's something that we found that's really successful. Let's say that we're doing something on social media. Here are 5 tips that we find really help somebody build their audience on social media. And we just share that information. But then at the end of that, you could say, hey, by the way, do you want to talk? Let's schedule a discovery call. And then they can take that next step. Maybe they started out by downloading a checklist or an ebook or something like that you had on your website, or that you did a Facebook ad for, or something like that. But you really want to focus on the problems that they're having, and how to help them solve their problems. Focus on benefits, not features. I mean, it's really easy for all of us to say, oh man, we've got, we can do this, and this, and our solution does this. But it doesn't really talk about how you transform their lives. How do you make a difference? And so you've got to incorporate that. In terms of the channels, I'm a big fan of omni-channel. So if you're going to have a nurture, you want to communicate with the people who are dropped into your funnel in the channels that they want to be communicated with. And so, you look at text message marketing, look at email marketing, Facebook Messenger, periodically drop in maybe a phone call, and so you can send a reminder to somebody on your sales team to just reach out and contact somebody. Or if they're already a customer and you're looking at trying to advance them to maybe with an upsell or a new product or service that you're offering, drop in a reminder that, your account manager just needs to call in and check in with them, to build that relationship. And so omni-channel is a really important strategy. And again, I mean, it's going to vary so widely in terms of what content you need to provide. But I think in general, surveys work great. Quizzes are fantastic. Ebooks, checklists, case studies, videos, webinars, or literally, I mean, if you're dealing with something existential where somebody, like, they've got to eat, give them an offer to come in immediately, to try your business. I mean, so, it really just depends on that whole, elements of value that you have the ability to deliver through your products and services.
I want to pick up on something that Ken said. You said something about objections, and I think that's a really great subject matter to have in your nurture stream. And what the objections are the objections that you hear or your clients hear, right, as they're going out to sell their products or services. And that's a great point, because you can get ahead of the objections, have enough time to explain your situation, and so you can bring the prospect along as well. So one of our big objections for my company prior to the pandemic was, oh, you guys are virtual, you're remote. We'd kind of like to work with a company that had an office in town and everybody was in that office. And for whatever reason, that was their objection. So what we had going out in our email nurture was, exactly that for a headline. And then, an explanation about how long we've worked this way, how we worked this way, larger companies that work this kind of way, and that kind of thing. So we got the chance to sort of put our, here's why we do it this way, and try to overcome that objection and make them feel good before we even got face to face with them, right, to try and close the deal. So,
yeah.
So Dana, let's switch over to something a little more concrete for a minute. Implementation. If someone's listening to this, maybe they've never heard of it or have none of it in place. So where would they start? What are the first steps in planning and implementing some kind of lead nurture strategy?
Yeah, I think probably the best thing that you can do if you haven't already is I really recommend them before they send anything out to really think about your ideal client profile. If you have not done that in any way, and it is not just 35 to 50-year-old women in Chicago. Like that's not really a profile. So I think there's something to be said for doing that, because that's going to help you start to think about who it is that you really need. You do need to put a kind of a face to this, a human element to this. So you got to do that first. But once you've done that, then I think I would use a tool like LinkedIn Sales Navigator or similar to start to identify who are the people and companies within your ideal client profile, so that you can follow them. And I keep that number small. I wouldn't go like more than 20 to 30 or so to start with. And why do I say this before any kind of messaging stuff? Well, you're not going to know how to do personalized messaging in a funnel or nurture if you don't know anything that they're going through, and you don't know what they've been talking about. You don't know what's on their LinkedIn profile. You don't know what their company's going through. Have they been going through a merger, an acquisition, whatever that is, whatever the trigger event is? You're going to need that before you reach out to them. Because otherwise you're going to be one more sucker out there who's going to be saying, well, let me tell you more about us. And I think it was Ken that said, yeah, I'm glad he touched on this, is just hammering away with 7 or 8 emails and then just changing the subject line. Like every Tom, Dick, and Harry does that. Like if you want to be changing this up, I would start to explore how you can do 2 or 3 different types of mixes in a cadence that, let's say, 7 to 10 touches. I mean, email is one, but perhaps it's time to experiment with some other techniques. There are some great technologies right now for video, whether it's BombBomb or another one called Bonjoro. Some of these that you can put in your video in the email, and so that you can say, hey, Jen, glad we're connected. I just wanted to reach out and say hi. And I know you're busy, but I made you this video to quickly introduce myself. Loom is another as well.
Yeah, Loom. Yeah, I was surprised.
So I mean, these things that are out there are a great way to mix it up a little. Mm-hmm. People don't fall into a slumber during, oh, it's this guy again. They're going to really, if you mix it up with some different things, that will help during your nurture campaign. So I do, though, really stress, if you haven't already, do the profile. Do the profile, do the 20 or 30, folks that you're going to follow, and then make that part of your personal outreach. I think that really sets the table for you to do something that feels good, rather than just blasting away at people.
Great. So, Jen, we've talked about a lot of different things, and we've all heard terms, and we use these terms like targeted content, multi-channel, lead nurturing, multiple touches. Can you explain what that means and why is it important in any strategy, really?
Sure, absolutely. So I'll define it. Nothing like a stacked question, eh, Paul?
I try.
No problem. Okay, I'll explain it and then give an example. So we got targeted content here. So imagine you are an HVAC company and someone's inquiring, put up their hand for an air conditioner. So your content that you're sending out in that email or text message or whatever stream it is going to be air conditioner focused as opposed to heating focused. So that's an example of how, you may have all these products and services in your company, but if a potential client puts up their hand for, one type of product or one, area that you serve, feed them that kind of content. And now we were just going through this other day. We're doing a landing page for a client, and oh, we should put the demo on there and this on there, and we have these apps, and it was just like, hold on a second, like one thing at a time. We have other things to offer, but let's take them through the step one at a time. So that would be an example of targeted content. So your AC, as opposed to anything around your heating. You asked about multi-channel lead nurturing. So multi-channel, another fancy marketing term. So multi-channel, so many different channels. So think there's a I guess a famous example of buying a car. So let's say you're ready to buy a new car, except for a Tesla. By the way, guys, did you know Tesla does not advertise? I heard this on a podcast today.
I didn't know
Tesla
that.
does not advertise, and there's no employee pricing. So everybody's paying full price for their Tesla. I was like, wow.
But they're wizards at PR.
Oh, there we go. There we go. Absolutely. Okay, so let's say you're buying anything but a Tesla. So what an example of multi-channel could be is, say you go onto the website and you're looking at the latest models. You can build your own. You sign up for some, to stay in touch and find a dealership that has that model that you want. Then you're say you're on Spotify, and let's say you're not on the paid version. You hear an ad for that car company. You're watching a video. You see ads for the video, and you're on the internet, and they're retargeting you. So they've got ads following you around the internet. So those are different channels that are advertising to you and messaging you as you have put your hand up in the early days in order to say, I'm kind of interested in this. The multiple touches, that would go back to, I'm trying to link this to real life. So as we said in the beginning of the podcast, you need multiple interactions in order to bring someone along to know, like, and trust you and your company. So multiple touches would mean, you're not just having one phone call, one email, and then you're sealing the deal. There is a series of getting to know the person, getting to know the company, getting to know what they are after, and then feeding them the content that is specific to their needs. So I think we're up to, I was going to say it takes about the latest stat I've seen. It's a wide burst, so 8 to 20 touches until you can have a client say yes to buy into your product or service. Now that, again, it depends. Is it a restaurant? Probably not. Is it a longer type sales cycle with a more expensive product or service? Probably. Yeah, you need the multiple touches in that way. Just in closing on that one, the multiple touches as well. Sometimes we have to realize that and this happens especially in B2B, there's not only one buyer, right? There might be one person that has the final decision. There might be many influencers. There might be a committee that actually has a final decision to sign off on it. And so the multiple touches can actually have to be going out to multiple different people. I know from my time in B2B software marketing and sales, you're talking to finance a certain way, you're talking to IT a certain way, you're talking to the end user a certain way, and those are all major decision makers, if they're going to bring in your product or your software. So there's some examples for you.
And what you just touched on, Jen, is so huge, because I think we've all had these moments where somewhere in the nurture, somebody reaches out to you and goes, "Hey, Jen, that sounds great what you're talking about in that message. Can you send me a sell sheet on 2 of those products today?" and so you're suddenly like, I can't emphasize enough of, nothing's ever going to be totally perfect all the time, and you shouldn't wait to launch your nurture. But if you got a folder somewhere on your desktop that has all your stuff, your diagrams, your sell sheets, your first 6 months of what this is going to look like for most clients, your video links, all your stuff that's ready to go, because you're going to get those questions and they're not going to want to wait a week for it. So just be ready for, within 48 hours, you have stuff that's ready to go. If something came up and they asked a question about, "Hey, that sounds great on the 7th touch that you just said, I want some information on it and I need it right now." And if you wait 3 days, it's done. It's passed. So I think that's just what you were saying is so huge for conversion. It's just a hidden secret weapon.
Yeah, those are some really, really good points, especially on the multiple touches. I think a lot of times we forget about that. All of us forget about it. And it's like, okay, think about how you interact with a business. You do the exact same thing. So other people are going to do that too. And you have to recognize that. And so Ian, moving on here, I have a stat question for you too.
All right. Hit me with it.
But Dan and Ken actually touched on this a little bit, but can you give us some examples of lead nurture campaigns? Obviously, they're not always email. There can be other channels, but another question is there an order to how you use these things? Should you send out an email before you try to call them? Should, like I think Dan mentioned, should you put a video in the email? And if you do, should that be in the first email or should that be later on in the process?
The answer is yes. And the answer is no. And the answer is maybe. The real there you go. The real question goes back to what Dan was saying, is you have to know who you're connecting with. You have to understand them as intimately as possible, whether it's an avatar of your ideal customer and understanding, okay, these are their pain points, these are how they like to communicate generally. There's always outliers, but you're looking to create the simplest funnel you possibly can for both yourself and for them. So an example of a lead nurture campaign and how you would use the different pieces. First of all, I'll just go over the pieces again, because you said some of them. Email. Email is one of the highest converting forms of connecting with people when you have their buy-in to get those emails. Like it is very high converting. But then there's additional pieces. There's you mentioned direct mail. Yeah, like especially in B2B. I have seen some, what we would call in the industry, lumpy mail campaigns that are very powerful. So even Ken mentioned this a few weeks ago about sending out to roofers, I think it was, a book about roofer marketing or some form of roofer marketing when they get into his nurture campaign. And so that's a great example of a lumpy mailer. Other ones I've seen is, in the corporate world, we used to send like custom printed jerseys for their favorite team. We'd find out what their favorite team was. We'd send them a custom printed jersey with their name on the back of that custom team or of their favorite team. And it was because what you're trying to do is create that value exchange, but also to excite them about the potential of what's ahead. So other things you mentioned, sales calls. Yeah, like you have to build out your plan according to how you think people will best respond in that value exchange. In most circumstances, a sales call too early is like asking for marriage too early in a dating relationship, right? Date number 1, 2, and 3. You're not going to ask, probably not even for a year or so, whatever. Everybody's different. But e-newsletters, webinars, even just if you were to, there's actually ways to actually build out Facebook funnels that are ad campaigns that are tiered campaigns where you are basically attracting people at the top of the funnel with a very easy try offer. When they buy into that, they get put into the next level funnel, and so on and so on. And you're increasing value through that relationship and taking that step closer to them. So I jokingly said yes, no, and maybe at the beginning, but that's a true answer. You have to really plan it out well. You need to execute it. So actually implement it, monitor it, and determine what's working and what's not in that funnel. And you can always tweak it. That's the beauty of it. And that's especially the beauty of digital marketing, is that it's far easier to tweak that than if you're custom printing jerseys for clients. That's a bigger mistake if you do it wrong.
Can I just add something to that too? So if somebody does claim an offer, sometimes the offer requires them to actually redeem something too, right? So, if they claim an ebook, then they're automatically going to get sent that ebook. But if they claim an offer, you need to have your nurture to make sure that not only did they claim the offer, but are they redeeming the offer? And so you want to send reminders. Hey, you still have 24 hours, to redeem this offer if you're using a scarcity or some kind of a model like that. And so that can be a nurture campaign as well. Just just because they claimed the offer, you really want them to become a customer. And so make sure that you're nurturing there. And, again, those reminder messages, could be email, could be text message, and if they don't respond that way, then maybe you force a phone call, where you notify somebody in the business to say, hey, I saw you claim this offer, but you haven't redeemed it yet. I just wanted to check in and see, is there an issue? And then you can build that relationship. So there are a lot of different things, and we all work with, different types of businesses. I think Dan's very much B2B. Ian, I know you do a lot of work in the dental space. We're kind of the human alien hybrids, I guess, refer back to like an X-File, which I've been watching latest episodes of. So we work with a lot of different, types of businesses. So it really is important to understand the nuance of what's going on in your business. And, there are some best practices. There are things that you can bake in that are largely systematic. Take advantage of that. As Dan talked about, marketing automation could be your friend, but don't just rely on a canned campaign that you buy from somebody. You got to personalize it. You got to make it relevant to your business and the situation that your customer or client is facing, as they're looking for you to a solution.
And Ken, I think one of the things that it sounds like something that's everybody should know, but they don't, is what their specific numbers should be as far as their goals when they do this stuff, when they're doing the nurturing. A guy we all know and love, John Jansch, once said to us many, many times, he goes, how many clients do you actually think you need? And, I got to admit, the first time he said it, I was like, I don't know how many. And I realized not only did I not need as much, but that if I was charging more, I wouldn't need as much. And so I think as you think of it through these nurturing kinds of relationships with people, think about how many clients you really need and ideal clients you really need. It may be a lot less than you think.
Or a lot more than you think.
Or a lot more than you think, yeah. But yeah, either way, once you know that, it just changes everything, I think, about how personal you can get. And I will say that much, and is that we're going to have a guest here on Marketing Guides in a few weeks, and I can't wait for her because I saw her on a webinar, and she said, I got better results talking to 20 to 40 people than I would 5,000. And she'll have a lot of insights on this, but let's just say personalization is going to be a bigger word than we have ever heard before. And I can't wait for the technology to catch up with that.
Yeah, those are some good points. And I think personalization is going to, especially the environment we live in now, it's going to become more important. And with that, this is probably a good place to wrap up. I'd like to thank everyone for their insights and knowledge, and thank everyone for listening to the podcast. And we will see you again next week.